Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sewing with Shelby YouTube channel. And I'm so excited to be here with you as you dive into the world of sewing. This week's video will be a combination of tutorial slash sew along with me. This is great for the first time sewist. Maybe you are too intimidated or too afraid to purchase a sewing machine, or maybe you already have a sewing machine and you just haven't taken it out of the box yet. Sewing does not have to be intimidating. And today we are going to sew this continuous coffee sleeve together with the kit that I put together just for you. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, Shelby, I have absolutely zero supplies. I don't know where to begin. I go to the store and I am overwhelmed by the choices of the fabric and I'm not quite sure I understand what to get. Do not worry about it, because in my kit, I give you everything you need besides your iron and your thread and your machine to do this project. This project is so easy. It can be your very first one. And it's going to be something that you use all the time, whenever you want. You can make this for your friends, maybe for a work colleague, or just keep it for yourself. And if you're sitting there like, oh yeah, great, a kit to buy, it's $5. I even include my personal clips that I use for every project. All you have to do is purchase it and wait for it to arrive. And whenever it gets to you, if you're thinking, okay, now I have to go find that video again, I've included a QR code for you to scan and it will bring you right back to this video. Now let's get right back to it and look at the supplies that we need to get started. To make this continuous coffee sleeve, if you purchase the kit, it will include 4 clips, 1 piece of pre-cut iron-on interfacing, and 2 pieces of pre-cut fabric. And that's it. See, I told you, sewing does not have to be scary. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 piece of our cotton and our iron-on interfacing or stabilizer to our ironing board. Once you're at your ironing board, you will take 1 piece of your fabric and lay it face down. You'll then take your iron-on stabilizer and make sure the shiny side is also face down. Try to place this equal on all sides. If you have a piece or a part that's too far over on one side, it's going to be okay. Once you have it about where you want it, flip it right side of your fabric facing up. You'll take your iron on a low heat setting and begin to press it. This iron-on stabilizer will shrink a little bit as it heats up, so try not to leave your iron sitting in one place for too long. And you may be wondering, how will I know when it's done? This doesn't take very many passes. But you can flip it back over and you'll know when it's done when it's 1 piece. It's stuck on there very well. If you wanted to, you could peel this up. I do not recommend it. Once it's on there, it needs to stay on there. Now that we have our iron-on stabilizer or interfacing on our 1 piece of fabric, it's time to take it to the sewing machine. Once you're at your sewing machine, what you are going to do is take 1 piece of your fabric and fold it up to meet both of your ends together. Now in the kit, I have included 4 clips This is to help you hold your fabric down while you're sewing it. If you don't want to use it, you do not have to. But what we're going to do is sew at 1/4 of an inch all the way down. We're going to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. And if you don't know what a 1/4 inch seam allowance is, you can take your ruler and measure in and mark at 1/4 of an inch all the way down to give yourself a guide of where you should be sewing. So what I'm going to do now is put down 2 stitches. Now what I'm going to do is make my machine sew in reverse. Just like that. That is a back stitch. A back stitch allows you to sew, and once you finish sewing, your project will not start falling apart. Those stitches will be locked in. Now that we have our stitches and our back stitches on our fabric, we're going to continue sewing down our 1/4 inch until we get at the end. And you can do this as slow or as fast as you want. I'm at the end. Now I will backstitch. Sometimes I do backstitch multiple times in the same spot. And that is just to make sure my stitch will not be going anywhere. Now that I've done this one, I will take the other piece of fabric and do the exact same thing. Once you have sewn both pieces, you can take a small pair of scissors and snip them apart. Ta-da! How easy was that? Now we have 2 pieces of our continuous coffee sleeve stitched on one end. Now, if you need to, what you can do is take a small pair of scissors and trim off any of the excess threads that was left behind by your sewing machine. Now, once you have all of your threads cleaned up, what you will want to do is finger press your seams open. And if you would like, you can take these to your ironing board and press them open as well. Once you're finished pressing your seams, you will lay them side by side and look at the bottom and the top of each piece to make sure they're going in the same direction. Fold one of your panels so the right side of your fabric is on the outside. Place them next to each other once again, bottom, bottom. Set one piece up and notice that you are going to have one seam on one side, and then you will find the seam on your next piece and set it on the inside. You do not want your seams to be in the same spot. Then you will shimmy both pieces together until the edges are lined up. And if they go a little wonky in a couple of places, it is completely fine. You're going to begin clipping the top all the way around. If it helps to stretch and move your fabric to make sure the tops are lined up, stretch it and fold it as needed. Once you have the top clipped together all the way around, we are going to go back to the sewing machine. Now that we're back at the machine and we have our pieces clipped together. We are going to lay this flat and put your fingers between the two clips and pull one piece up to the side so you can start sewing on one panel completely flat. It should easily slip under your foot. Push your foot down, and we are once again going to be sewing at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If one of your clips is in your way, you can go ahead and remove it and set it to the side. I'm going to sew a couple of stitches, stop, and then back stitch. Then continue sewing, and we will go all the way around the top. Once you come down far enough and you've run out of room to sew, you will roll the coffee sleeve, fold it back again, and you've created more space to continue sewing. You'll stop, roll your fabric towards you a little more. Now there will be a clip in your way. You can go ahead and remove it and stitch down further. I'm stopping, rolling it back. I've created more room. I'm stopping, rolling it back, removing the clip that's in my way, and sewing again. Halfway there. You are eventually going to come to a point where you will find your seam. Your sewing machine should not have any trouble going over this, but if you would like to take your time to make sure that it's easily fed through, now's the time to do it. Now I have made it all the way to my starting point, and what I'm going to try to do is steer my fabric to make sure my needle lines back up at my starting point. I'm there. I'm going to go over my seam or my stitch 1 to 2 times, and then I'm going to back stitch again. When my needle is all the way up, I'm going to lift my foot and pull this away from my machine, cut it on the side, and now my top seam is completed. Now, if you've made it this far, congratulations, you are one step closer to having your continuous coffee sleeve done. I do not like all of the pieces of thread that my sewing machine leaves behind when I backstitch. So what I'm going to do is take my small pair of scissors, and I'm just going to remove these threads. Once I have these completely gone and cleaned up, I'm going to open it, and then I'm going to make sure I turn it right side out. Look how beautiful. Now I'm going to take my clips and I'm going to take the part that has my iron-on interfacing and I'm going to roll down the edge of my fabric and clip it all the way around. We're just rolling and clipping. And there's my puppy dog in the background, keeping me company. And there you have it. It's rolled down all the way around and clipped in place. And I'm using the same 4 clips that I have included in the kit. That's all you need. And once you have your edge clipped down all the way around your interfacing, what you're going to want to do is take your other panel and feed it through the tube. Go all the way around your seam and press it really well with your fingers to make sure it's going to lay nice and flat on this seam. Now you're going to come to the other end and you're going to notice that it's hanging out longer than the spot that we just clipped. If there's a hard part of this project, it's going to be now, but it's as hard as it gets. What we're going to do is remove a clip, take our edge, and fold it on the inside. We're going to press it. To hear my dog snoring. We're going to press it really good with our fingers and make sure our 2 edges are lined up, creating a lip. And then we will clip it. Remove a clip, fold it, press it with our fingers, pulling it down into the tube. If we ever feel some slack, making sure they're both lined up, clipping it again, and we're going to go all the way around doing this. I like to fold it and roll it a little, and then press it with all of my fingers and clip it back. Alright, now we've made it all the way around, so what we're going to do is take it to our sewing machine. Alright, we're back at our machine and now we have a nearly completed project. What we're going to do now is peel this back. This section right here that has no clips, we're going to put it right underneath the foot of our machine. Now, previously we were sewing at 1/4 inch seam allowance, but this time we are going to do 1/8. It is smaller than 1/4 inch. If it helps you to use a ruler to mark 1/4 seam allowance to give yourself a guideline to sew on, please do it. It will help you so much. You can even use an air erasable or a heat erasable pen or simple chalk. But you really need to do the 1/8 inch seam allowance because some of that fabric, when we rolled it and tucked it inside, it shortened. So there's less fabric on the inside. It will not get caught on 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now that I have this folded back, I'm going to remove one of my clips just to make sure that I have enough room to sew, and I'm going to begin stitching. Don't forget to backstitch a couple of times. I'm going to roll and fold just like we did before, and then I'm going to come stitch down. Roll and fold. Remove the clips as you go to get them out of your way. Your sewing machine may struggle slightly, or it may sound like it's struggling because it is going through several layers of fabric this time, but I promise it's going to be okay. Keep going. Just slow down if you need to. Okay, we're almost back at the beginning. We're going to run those beginning stitches over a couple of times. Now that we have stitched all the way around the bottom, we're going to have several pieces of thread right here that we will need to trim off. You can use whatever scissors or snips you have to get as close as possible right here. I use these small ones because I know that if I have really big scissors to do this, I'm going to cut into my fabric. I've done it multiple times before. Don't trust me with big scissors. Okay, we've got it all cleaned up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew on this edge now. We've already sewn here before. That seam is right here. We have folded down both sides of our fabric. You cannot see that seam at all. But we need this to be very sturdy. So we're going to sew the top of it again with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to put a couple of stitches, and then I'm going to back stitch, and then we're going to take off with our rolling and folding. Roll it back. The top edge, it doesn't matter if we do an 1/8 of an inch on the top. I like to do an 1/8 of an inch, but you can do a 1/4 if you'd like to. This side, it doesn't matter as much because we have already sewn it together. There's my beginning threads. I'm going to run them over and then back stitch on top of them just to make sure they're locked in and secured. I'm going to lift my needle all the way up, lift my presser foot. I don't too much like using the thread cutter that's on the side of my machine, I do prefer to use these little scissors. And I'm just going to go in again, snip all of my ugly back stitching threads. Make sure I got all of them. And there we have it. It's done. It's completed. Let's go put it on a coffee cup. Okay, now that we have finished sewing and snipping off all of our thread ends, it is time to see how well it's going to fit on a coffee cup. Now, personally, I don't go to Starbucks very often, but I know that this will fit even on the largest size. This cup is about a medium at Starbucks, so a grande, I know it's going to fit on there. The venti, it might come closer to the bottom, but it is still going to fit just fine. If you have your own reusable coffee cups, it's going to fit on there too. The placement is going to fall depending on how wide that cup was made, but it is still going to protect your hand from being too hot or too cold. But now that you know how to make this project and you've done it, maybe you can get some more fabric and try to make it for a friend, a family member, or even a coworker. I know I give these to anyone that needs one. If I see them drinking coffee and they don't have a coffee sleeve, I don't like my hands to be cold. If my hands are cold, I'm complaining. I make these for everybody's different personalities, and sometimes I even make ones that can be reversed. I just throw these in the washer whenever they need to be cleaned if they get sticky. You can hand wash yours if you'd like to. I throw mine in the washer every time. But now that you've used the kit to make your own, maybe you can buy this for someone who is beginning to sew too. Let me know by showing me on Facebook, stitching me on TikTok, or leaving me a comment below. Thank you guys for watching Sewing with Shelby, and I want to see what you create with this. Don't forget to leave me a review on my Etsy page where you can find the kit, and comment below and let me know what else you would like to see. Bye!